Hey everyone, welcome to the Deceptor Lab, and this is your boy Freeze coming at you with my con highlight of the week. And so this week we're going to continue in our combiner series where we're going to talk about Menasor. And so I've been doing some testing with him myself to see if he would be a viable option for me in the future. Right now on my live server, I don't have dead end, so I'm going to go test him out on the test server. But I do have some questions, and I'm wondering, is Menasor one of the best combiners in the game, one of the worst combiners in the game? Um, we'll get to the meat of it here in a minute, but let me get set up first and just hold tight, and I'll be right back. All right, everyone. And so here we are now. We're on set up on the battlefield, and let's just go take a look at Menasor real quick because I always like to start off by looking at any bot that I looking at his stats. So same thing with the combiners. And so we'll scroll through. We will find Menasor, and there he is. So like I said, I don't have dead end, so I had to go run this on the test server. So anything you can see is on my playtest account for this video. Um, so here I got him up there at level 20. And so the first thing I want to look at, I always want to start off looking at the health. The health at 61k. Honestly, man, I find that to be a little bit low for any 4-star. And we'll talk about why that's low here in a bit. I don't think it's a good reason, but it's a reason nonetheless. But I mean, even Devastator, if you saw my video on him, a little bit higher health than Menasor. Um, somewhere in the neighborhood of Tripredicus. But I think Tripredicus offers you a lot more offensively, damage wise. Predaking up there at 64. So it's comparable, but it's still relatively low. Um, Bruticus is up there pretty high, which I think is one of his high points. But yeah, so I think that when you look at it comparatively, like it's not really any comparison. That health is really low. The DPS is on this one. They got him at 680. I still think that's on the low side. I mean, Devastator has got 630. But at the same time, we don't necessarily. I'm not usually depending really heavily on my combiner for their normal attack. So it's tolerable. It's not the lowest. I think it's middle of the pack when you look at Menasor from a DPS standpoint. But if you looked at my Devastator video, like I said, one of the things I was talking about in it is Devastator is still usable in my opinion in Prime League, but might be limited to the first base or two. But so if you hadn't seen that, I'll post a link to that video in this one as well so you can take a look at it. Alright, so let's look at some abilities. And so the first ability he has is going to be his Blade Dash. And so for the Blade Dash, what it's telling you is that you can dash to a target and slash it for 2040 damage points. Alright, so let's go take a look at it. We'll see that Blade Dash in action, and we'll see what the high points are for, and or possibly the low points. We'll see how it goes for Menasor and this Blade Dash. So I was playing around with him a little bit earlier, so I had to drop the 25 ore for him, and then we'll just go ahead into a battle. We'll go into a battle in zone 15, and I'll jump out of the camera real quick so I can focus on playing. So I'll tell you, just looking at that damage is it's okay. You're not going to destroy too many items with that. So to keep things in perspective, and I'm just going to just run them just to be running them. So I'll go ahead and, well, I was going to go for that Spider-Man, but Triptychon took care of it. So I'll work my way back. See if I can go to, nah, it's not going to reach that either. I was going to go to a build bot. something low health. But right here, I just kind of just dive in, and you can see it's got pretty good range up here. In 2 jumps, I can get back. And that's what I want to do, get to a build bot. So I can use it to take out some build bots. But then you can see that low health kind of taking effect as you jump into the middle of a lot of defenses. Well, shoot, the build bot's still standing with the self heal on it. So it's not even really good for that purpose. But what you get out of that blade dash is a decent amount of range. All right. So let's go back. And we'll go back to his abilities. And we'll take a look one more time. Alright, so when you're looking at his abilities, one of the things that I'm seeing is for that blade dash, so decent range. Zone 15 with self heal core on the build bot wasn't able to take it out. So now maybe that's a little bit on the low side damage wise. Then we got a kinetic barrier, which is going to be your second ability. And this is what I really like them for. Granted, the first ability, the blade dash, is, from a visual standpoint, is spot on. Like when I first started playing the game and I saw Menasor, I just thought that was so cool to see him up there kind of teleporting around. And you can see that that's what I use as a defensive ability for Menasor because of the reflection that it does. Because he spins his sword around, reflects 75% of all damage, and also deals an additional 1,768 damage to nearby enemies. So we can take a look at that, and we'll also take a look at his third ability, which is going to be Internal Conflict, and that's going to deal 2,720 electric damage and disable enemies. Excuse me for that. Had a little pop up on my screen. Disable enemies over a large area while losing 20% of your max health. If the ability kills you, then you disable enemy base for 10 seconds. So sounds good in theory, right? Let's take him back on the battlefield. Let's see what he does. Alright, so we'll just go in. We'll go back into zone 15 and we will give it a whirl. So I say now, out of all the abilities, I probably like the kinetic barrier the most, just because I like any, reflecting damage. Like I was one of those guys. It took me a long time to stop using Tantrum to start using some of these bots. So I definitely like the concept. What I don't like is the range on this thing. And so you can see here while his range is really limited. So you're kind of dependent on that blade dash that we were talking about earlier to get this done. So this time I get him to the build bot. Doesn't take it out, but with the kinetic barrier, I'm able to take it out. And I'm right over there by MDS, but I didn't get to use it on the MDS. So I got a couple options here. I can use this twice, or I can try to use the third ability, the 4-star ability, and it saps all his health. He doesn't die as a result, so I get to stun a couple items nearby. Don't get to stun the entire base. I'll be honest with you guys, that's what kind of bothers me a little bit. So let's talk about it. Alright, so reflecting 75% of damage, actually pretty good. It doesn't last as long as I think that it probably should, but it's just kind of okay damage, that 1.7k-ish, around that neighborhood. That is just kind of okay. Kind of same thing with the blade dash. It's actually less than the blade dash, but you can put damage on multiple targets, right? Now, let's go back and look at Internal Conflict, because this one actually bothers me more than anything. So I'll actually get it on the screen first. So we're talking about 2.7k electrical damage. And disable enemies over a large area. So in that play we just made, we only disabled what ended up being two different defenses. And that says you lose 20% of your max health. Now we already discussed the statistics on this guy, and we already discussed that his health was pretty low. So basically, you want to use this ability, send this combiner on essentially what's going to be a suicide mission, so that you can stun the whole base. Now I actually want to see that in action, so let's go ahead and try it one more time on one of these bases, see if we can get it, because one of the issues that I have with this is it's incredibly difficult. Well, it's not difficult to time, but you got to be really strategic about trying to time this correctly. And so it takes a decent amount of management in order to make that work correctly. So that's what we're looking at. So let's try it again. And let's see if I can get him to damage anything. If I can get him to, so I'm just gonna start off with Menasor. And I'll try one of these spider mines. Let's see if I can do some damage to it. Alright, so spider mine there. Alright, we got rid of the spider mine. Let's go ahead and use our kinetic barrier. And so it's good because he's getting attacked by multiple things, so you can kind of soften him up. But now I still got a lot of health left, so I'm gonna use my blade dash again. Blade dash over to another spider mine. And I don't think that's enough yet, so I'm going to, now I think it's time to go use my final ability. And I mean, once again, I kind of get a couple of things stunt, nothing crazy. And so I honestly, man, I'm not really a fan. I mean, when you tell me that I'm going to take a bot and that he's going to lose 20% of his max health, and you tell me also that he's not a very high health bot, that's a problem for me. And I think there was a time where Menasor was really, really good. I remember seeing Menasor, I was like a HQ 13, a HQ 14, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And I saw people, dash them into the middle of a battlefield there and soften up a bunch of defenses. And, the team just came in there and just took care of the rest. And it made things really, really easy. But this is one of those cases where I feel like the game kind of just passed the bot by a little bit. And this is one of the reasons why I feel like Space Ape is gonna have to go back with the combiners and kind of rework the combiners a little bit. Now, a lot of times I'll disagree with people on reworking like old bots. They say, oh, these bots aren't good, but there's also hundreds of bots. So if you can go get a new bot to replace that old bot, and and everything's kind of okay again, you can use your new bot. And I've done it several times. Going back, if you guys been watching my videos, I had Sentius Malice. That's my dude. And then I got Impactor. Alright, well, Impactor's obviously a little bit stronger. I used him instead. When I get a chance, when I finally go get Armada Megatron, I'll probably use him instead of Impactor. And so on and so forth. You don't really get that option with combiners because it's not a lot of them. And here's my actual issue. And I'm going to go back to the lab for a second while I talk about this. My issue is this. When you have combiners and you go and you fight to go get all 5 or all 6 of those bots, you don't know what's going to come out of those bundles. You don't know what's going to come out of, those crystals that you get in events. It takes a long time, in most cases, to get all the bots you need for a combiner. Now, when you finally do get all those bots, you got to have enough combiner spark. And then you got to wait for which it could take you a couple of months to go through the upgrades to get that bot to a usable level in some of the higher league wars. Um, I'll tell you some of the things that I've talked with Space Ape about, especially like in playtest. I feel like for Or 13, I feel like there needs to be a mechanic where as you use your combiner and as you go through cooldown time, you should it should cost you less Or 13. Uh, a while back ago, kind of got told, no, that's not something we could do. And I mean, honestly, we had a couple of testers that said the same thing. Oh, that's not necessary. But at the same time, I'm looking at Space Ape going on their live streams and saying, oh, well, you don't need 5 stars necessarily. A lot of your 4 stars should still be good. But they've also allowed a lot of your 4 stars to not keep up with the times, not be as relevant. And so that becomes a problem because then you get bots like this. Not high health, not great damage, okay damage. You know, and soften up some key defenses, not really taking anything out. And it's still costing you 10 to 25 or 13 per battle, per use. That's a little bit problematic for me. So as much as I like Menasor and lore, in the cartoons and everything like that, this is a bot that needs some work to make him relevant again in the current war effects and the current meta to be good again. Um, and honestly, I venture to say I think he's one of the worst combiners currently, but he definitely had his day during his time. He was one of the best. Um, but just because we have so few combiners, I think that's one of those things that needs to be addressed. Uh, and maybe they'll address it when they're making 5 star combiners. Who knows? But I'm curious to see you guys' thoughts. So let me know in the comments what you think. It is Menasor the worst combiner, and if they were to change anything about him, what would you like to see? So you can leave a comment on this video, or you can join the conversation on my Discord server, and we can talk about it. I like to talk about these kind of things with players all the time, and yeah, just so this come through, I'll leave my Discord and all my social media info in the bio of my page, as well as on this video in the info section, in case you want to join us and join the conversation. But without a complete rework, um, I think it's going to be kind of tough for this bot. So anyway, um, I'm a day behind on this week, so I will have new content out tomorrow. I think that I'm going to be talking about some ratings for some combat bots. Um, Kind of like if you saw my past video, I did one for my top 10 just regular bots in the game. I think I'm going to do something similar to combat bots. So hopefully I get to see you all you guys then. But if not, well, if not, I will see you guys out there on the battlefield. So thanks for joining me today. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And if you like my content, go ahead and like this video. So that way, we can you can always see all my content if you are a subscriber and get notifications for it. But all right, I'll see you guys out there on the battlefield. Freezius out.